Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by Reps, Virtual Reality, First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, Tip of the Spear, the Top Hopper, and Sports Workbook. Thank you to Coach Rozier for hooking us up with Nick Garrett. Man, I've told y'all before, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here. But I found out about Riverside Military Academy the other day. A friend told me about a Twitter space on recruiting. So then I asked Coach, I said, Coach, you have something to do with the Twitter space? And he does. So it's a small world. So Coach Nick Garrett, for anybody that's watching or that's going to watch that does not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach.
Sure. Yeah, I was just a young man that came out of Oxnard, California. Played ball at Wanami High School, which was notorious for a ton of professional athletes from pretty much every sport. Very rich community as far as in athletes and things of that nature. From there, went on and played at Ventura College, where I met one of my most influential mentors, Chris Thomas, who was not only a Super Bowl champion with the Rams, but a Hall of Fame coach within our program, also as a TED Talk speaker. He told me, no matter what you do in life, don't ever stop giving. That's always resonated with me, and I kind of knew I had some leadership capabilities. I just didn't know to what capacity. So, from there, I was kind of continuously building. Went to Grayson University in Lamona, Iowa, with my offensive coordinator that left Ventura College, Craig Spence. Was there. Got an opportunity to play with some great talent. You just mentioned Anthony Rozier. He's one that had transferred in from South Florida. He was an exceptional talent. And we just had guys kind of from all over the country, probably about 120 guys from high school to transfers. When I lost my senior year, because of my capacity as a leader on the field and off the field, the coach said, "Hey, we'll honor your scholarship if you and one other person would decide to stay on a coach." And I said, "Man, that's a huge ask. I still want to play, but I also know I always want to give back to people that it gave to me." So I made the decision then to coach. Was varsity running back coach AVOC. Made quite the impression on our head coach. He made a phone call. I got a trial by error, kind of in person, live on the fly interview, meaning I had to learn a playbook in a van all the way down to East Texas for an all-star game. I was going to call the plays. It's going to be the first time being a play caller. And they said, if we win, you got the job. We lose, you're canned. And I said, oh, smokes, man. Not only did we win by 21, but I also landed 5 recruits off that all-star game. And so the job offer was mine for a whopping $300 a month in a single-person dorm. And I thought I was a millionaire, right? So that's where it all kicked off. Humble beginnings. From there, went on from Kansas Western, had back-to-back nationally ranked seasons there. Went to my alma mater, Wanami High School. They were in dire needs of some help. And so went back, had a really great season, had opportunity to coach some really great, talented kids. And that was one of those things when I knew, like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, because there's nothing like going back home and giving to a place that absolutely needs it. And then it's a place I called home for a number of years. From there, went to East LA College, was there for 4 years. They were completely god-awful. When I met with the athletic director, to be honest with you, he said, we are the laughingstock of junior college football. Al Cohn's his name. You can look him up. This is before Last Chance U. And so I told him by year 3, I'm going to win you a championship. He said, you're crazy. I said, all right. Not only did we bring in national powerhouse talent from our backyard, and I'm going to reemphasize that again, our backyard. We didn't out-of-state recruit. We went and just got the best of the best and brought them all together. We won in year 3. We won conference, region, and our bowl game, which was the first time in 54 years at that place. So made some history there. It was absolutely fantastic. Sent kids all over the country, from top to bottom, Power 5 schools all the way down. We had a 100% placement rate, which was unheard of at that time. From there, went to Western New Mexico, had a small cup of coffee, I like to say. It's a Division II school. Got to coach and work with some people that were former Graceland people. as far as assistant coaches and the head coach. Had a conflict of interest with the co-offensive coordinator position. He had one style of offense. I was going in the other direction, so I departed. Went to Bethel College for 2 years in North Newton, Kansas. If you know where that is, I'll give you $100.
Coach, I'm not good at geometry, Coach.
Yeah.
I'm not good at geometry. I didn't pay attention in geography either. All
Yeah,
right,
no doubt.
I can't point out Kansas on a map. I think it's in the West, Coach.
Well, Salina, Kansas is smack dab central United States. North Newton's about 45 minutes south of that, 40 minutes south of that. So anyhow, from there, got a call to come back home at a small private that was struggling to maintain a roster. Needed to revamp some energy at the school. So I came in and literally wore 50 hats, got the thing going, was training kids every day at 6 a.m., males, females. Got that thing ramped back up. Got a call from out here from a guy I grew up with. Said, "Hey man, we need you here." And I said, Georgia, man, that's kind of far from California. He goes, "Look, man, I know what you could do. We get you out here, we can win." I said, "Man, I'm sure they're going to get an in-state guy, right?" So 73 applicants, I believe, was a specific number. I was one of 2 out-of-state guys, one of 5 interviews in person. And within a week later, they called me up and said, "The job's yours. When can you get here?" So loaded my family up in 2 cars, drove from Oxnard all the way to Gainesville, Georgia. That first year, we had the opportunity to be much more competitive than years past. Instead of getting beat by 50 a game, we're losing games by 13, 7, 3 or less. So we turned a corner. Second year, we made history. We beat Commerce, which is a powerhouse here in Georgia. Never beat them in school history. Won the Fox 5 game of the week that game with all 25 of our players and 10 people in the stands on their senior night. They were undefeated at the time. Went to the second round of playoffs, first time in school history in GHSA. Following year, we finished top 13 in the state that year. Following year, finished top 25, missed playoff by a game. And then they dropped our program. And then it's kind of been a mixed bag of executive staff, presidents, and a revolving door up there. So philosophically, it's had its issues. But, we attempt to stay the course. Learned quite a bit since I've been here. Got to see some phenomenal speakers. Football in the South is to me second to none. And from Nick Saban's to your Kirby Smarts, taking a helicopter on our campus, going to their campus, and getting to meet Bill Belichick, getting to see
How'd you
different
meet
people.
Bill Belichick?
So I didn't get to shake hands with him. He was just actually a speaker at the clinic over at Georgia. So didn't officially shake hands with him, but I sat about 6 rows away.
Hey.
And how he talks on TV is how he talks in person, just to the point, not very charismatic, doesn't tell any jokes, just to the point. I got to go meet Dabo Sweeney. Didn't get to shake hands with him. Brent Venables when he was still there. Got to meet Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech. I mean, just a whole slew of different people just from being down here in the South. Got to do different speaking engagements with a lot of well-known people and things like that. It's been a real treat. And so that's what kind of gets me here today. And you had mentioned the Twitter Spaces. So that's a platform that that Coach Daniel created, kind of brought me along, and we've had the opportunity to have a whole slew of Division I coaches from all over, from head coaches all the way down, former NFL champions, former NFL players, that just give the ins and outs of their story, their journey, how football shaped their life, how to handle recruiting, all the ins and outs from a parent perspective, coaching perspective, student athlete perspective, what to expect when you get into college, how to be college ready, how to handle time management, how to understand NILs and how to understand the transfer portal and everything in between. And so we're going on week 12 here, and it's been an absolute real treat to have even people in the recruiting department come in there and go ahead and give their testimony and give some information to, again, parents, business owners, church advocates, college coaches. I mean, you name it. We've had a whole slew of people on there, recruiting services, just really just pouring and pouring and pouring into the community. We don't ask for anything in return. We don't ask for any finances or anything like that. And we're open to evaluate films, ask questions. I just got off a message kind of thread the other day with the head coach out of New Jersey about his son, and asked me to evaluate his film from a college pair of eyes, and gave my true evaluation. And he said, man, it's crazy. You verbatim gave the same information as one of the coordinators at Duke University. He's like, man, I'm just blown away. He goes, you're much easier to get a hold of than those guys. I said, it's just one of those things. If you get a hold of me, I got a 24-hour rule, whether it's a student, athlete, parent, or anybody else. If you got the time to reach out to me and you have a need for something, and you do it in a professional manner, then I'll get back to you within 24 hours.
Wow, Coach. It's great that you're giving back and helping, kids and coaches. But for the kids that may watch this, or the parents that may watch this, what's like 3 things that they can focus on when they're in high school to set themselves up for success,
Sure.
To get a scholarship or to go to play college football?
First thing I try to tell people is be patient. Don't get caught up in the whirlwind of social media and the influence of that. Hey, I'm blessed to get my 45th offer for such and such, and it's a misconception, meaning a lot of those offers aren't committable, and people don't understand what that means. People don't understand the influence of transfer portals. People don't understand the influence of NIL deals. Is just be great where your feet are, meaning be a great person. Have your academics absolutely stellar. Have your test scores exceptional. Now, I think they just waived all tests, SAT and ACT, through NCAA, if I'm not mistaken. I know they have with all the Ivy Leagues, right? And the crazy thing is, Ivy Leagues created the SAT, and they're the first people to get rid of it. It's crazy, but they also wanted to be more competitive in sports, because their acceptance rates is slim to none. Have great film. Be a great citizen in your community. And when I say have great film, kids do a poor job of building their film. I mean, some of their best clips might be 5 minutes in. Coaches aren't going to look at that. I had a rule as a college coach: is if your first 5 clips didn't get my blood pressure elevated, on to the next kid, because I got to go through 3,000 to 5,000 films for 50 scholarships, and maybe even less than that. So I don't have the time, and that was back in the day, to go through every single kid's film and wait 5 minutes in. Not going to do it. So make sure your first couple clips pop. If you feel like you're a speedy guy, we'll make a play where you're separating from people. Have explosive plays on there. If you feel you're a great DB, have ones where you're man pressing, soft zone, hard zone, where you're blowing up running backs in the backfield, intercepting balls and taking them the distance. Have some special teams clips on there. Just make sure you're diversifying your portfolio in a way where if you're a running back and you're going against 25 other guys for that spot, give them every reason to say yes and no reason to say no.
Yeah, no doubt, Coach. So the thing that we were going to talk about is how to win daily, the psychology improvement of the game. Coach, now that's something I need a lot of help with, is how to win daily and the psychology, because I took psychology and I didn't understand it.
Sure.
I understand philosophy, but psychology, I didn't get it. So help me with that, Coach.
Yeah, I think it's the big thing is people need to understand how you could be physically gifted, and that's fantastic. But at some point through adversities in your life, now more than ever, because we're still recovering from mental health from the pandemic, and people don't want to address that issue, but it's an issue. And that's why you have, the portal being the way it is, vaping being out of control, drug abuse being the way it is because mental health isn't addressed enough. It's not a priority. Your mental health needs to be number one. If you cannot take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of somebody else? I think people have a very wrong misconception. Give. Well, at some point you're gonna burn out, because who's giving to you? When things go awry, who do you lean on for your supports? And so, big thing people to understand is take care of yourself, take care of your mental well-being. If it's reading a book, if it's listening to music, if it's meditation, might be going to church, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it may be, jotting something down in a journal. Sometimes people like to talk to themselves like, man, this guy's crazy. No, in actuality, it's a coping mechanism to kind of go through some of the issues that may be kind of underlying or kind of going on. Um, Learn how to count on people. There are certain people that you got to have in your corner. You're going to have to trust somebody at some point. You're going to have to count on somebody at some point, because you need to have a job, you need to have employment, and you need to have referrals. If you were to apply for a job and you have no references, what is that going to say about the person trying to hire you, right? They're like, wait a minute, you don't have any references? I don't know about this guy. Resume looks good. And then there again, like, you got to have some strong people in your corner. You got to have some type of supports. And then you got to understand how to define success. For some people, it's material items. Hey, I'm a millionaire. I got these boats. I got this NIL money. I'm all about the stats. I want to be a Heisman contender. I want to be drafted in professional sports. Okay, well, for some people, success is maybe just getting up every day. For other people, success might be pouring into others. You just got to understand how to define success for yourself. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean how someone else defines it. You need to align yourself with that. It's really what's for you. And one thing we do in my classes and with our athletes is if I were to tell you to put down some daily goals for yourself, some intermediate goals for yourselves, some long-term goals for yourself that no one is defining for you, that you had to put down for yourself. And you do that, right? And here's the thing that jams people up. And I ask people, kind of give me your list. It's an icebreaker. And then I turn back around and said, off these list of goals that you have for yourself, what's your action plan to get there? And every time, radio silence. I mean, these are from sixth graders all the way up to 22-year-old men. They said, well, what do you mean, coach? I said, any goal without an action plan is wasted time. They said, well, what do you mean? I said, you can have a goal, and people have goals, but they have no plan to attain them. They don't know what resources they need to attain them. It is wasted time. Kids just mind just blown. And I said, this list wasn't generated by me. It wasn't out of a book. This is just from you. So if you don't know how to define your own success and how to create a plan for your own goals, how are you going to be successful in anything that you're doing? Man, coach, you're right. And I said, think about that and put this in a spot where you could visually see it every day and figure out a way to achieve these small victories every day to lead into big ones. And once you do that, start the process over again. And that's how you'll start generating success. And it's something very simple, but a lot of people screw it up. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do that. This is just something that you build for you. And if you're not able to do that, man, I don't know what to tell you, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I study this stuff all the time about success and how to be a success. And like Coach Saban says, focus on the process. Don't focus on the results. Bill Walsh, you're from California. Bill Walsh said, don't worry about the scoreboard. The scoreboard will take care of itself. So what's your philosophy on that? Is it not the goal, but the everyday, what you're doing that you need to worry about?
Yeah, I just think, the process, you got to understand what your particular process is, right? You refer to Nick Saban, he's the winningest coach in college football history, if I'm not mistaken. There's a certain way that he does things. I had a friend of mine that coached with him for a little bit, and he said it was business. Right when you clocked in to when you left, it was a factory. It is an absolute business. There's his way, and then that's it, and it works. And you mentioned Bill Walsh. My former mentor and coach worked with the Niners for a number of years. Actually knew we ran that system, his system. And I mean, you want to talk about complicated, man, but there's a certain reason for what he did, and people thought it was crazy, but it worked. The formula worked. When I think of how I define things, to me, it's really is, are you finding ways to get better each day? Mm-hmm. Are you pouring into others? To me, being a selfless servant doesn't necessarily mean my bank account's completely full. I'm a millionaire in relationships, and I'm a national champion in relationships. And to me, that carries a lot of weight in my eyes. And when you're doing the right things, kids will let you know. Meaning they're going to come visit with you. They're going to call you. They're going to reach out to you. They're going to invite you to weddings. They're going to visit you with their kids. They're going to ask you as a reference for a job. They're going to ask you for life advice. If you make the lasting imprint on a young man that you're coaching, it's for a lifetime. And that's one thing I always tell people and parents is if I coach you now, I coach you for a lifetime. Now, we have kids leave, which is fine. And their parents too reach out, hey, I know you're still not coaching my kid. Who told you that? Right? I never said that. Reach out to me as far as, what do you need? I'll get updates on videos and graduations and all that. And it's important to me that you let people know that they're valued and that they matter. And this is where you're at. And this is how I'm going to help you get to where you want to be. And if you live that lifestyle, you'll be successful in my eyes.
Yes, sir. So what do you hang your hat on? I know you hang your hat on what we've been talking about, but in your program, like what y'all hang y'all's hat on?
So I'm glad that's a great question, and people should know how to answer that. So I always tell people it's the big three are the three pillars. Number one, I'm going to make you a better person. First and foremost, just flat out, I'm going to make you a better person, but I'm going to model what I'm asking of you. A lot of people aren't able to do that. They'll tell you what they want you to be and tell you what you need to be, but they don't model it themselves. And in today's era of student athletes, and even in the classroom, you need to have a model to reference off of, be the example to set. Two, I'm going to hold you accountable academically. So another area that people don't do enough is hold kids accountable academically. Yeah, you're a phenomenal athlete, so I'm going to use up your talent while I have you, but I'm not preparing you for college. And that's why fallout rate's so bad and retention's so bad from freshmen, high school kids into their sophomore year. They're not prepared. Now, athletically they are, but that's not enough. Okay. Number three is making sure you're a great teammate and great community person, whether it's at home, where you're at, and things of that nature. Those three are the three things that we hang our hat on, and that's what we've been able to have since I started in 2017. All the way up to now, we'll have 24, and that's including a year they dropped us, 24 student athletes playing at the next level from FBS all the way down, three of which just graduated. One of them was at the top engineering school, or one of the top engineering schools in the country, and almost won a national championship. Another one just graduated from a business school in New York. And then another one was on a Division I track over here in North Carolina. He just finished up and is going to take over an entire shop through the family and then be joining the workforce. But every single one of those guys still maintain a 3-0. Were leaders on their teams, never had any issues, and just were prepared for everyday life by going through here and us working with them directly and their families to get them where they are now.
So they dropped football at the school that you're at now and brought it back, or?
Yeah, so we were going to go into a phenomenal year. We had 28 returners. Out of the 28, 6 of them were offer kids. One of them was one of the top players in the state of Georgia. 2 of them were actually. And they dropped sports because of COVID, and we were one of 2 schools in the state of Georgia that dropped it. So what I ended up doing was I could make the choice to leave or choose the challenge of finding a way to become better, meaning that, hey, we want to keep you on. I want you to run the intramural department for the entire school, create a program, create a manual, create a budget, and staff it. I took that challenge on. Most people thought I was crazy, but I feel that God has a plan for all of us, and he puts the heaviest burdens on those that could carry it. And so because of that, to me, it was the most humiliating time of my life, but it was also the most rewarding because I figured out a lot more about myself and what I was capable of when your back's against the wall and things are in your favor. So, and then kind of since then, it's bit in pieces because our place is military philosophy, and it's expensive. And sometimes it's hard for families. They do it for a year, they do it for a semester, or everything in between. So we don't have the ability to retain an entire team back. It's pretty much a new team every year. And we don't get a lot of time with those boys, and they're off for the entire summer. So with all these different variables, it's not really built for football success, but it makes my job more taxing, which is fine too, because if you're not on your P's and Q's, you're going to have a long season, to say the least.
Yeah. So So basically you're creating a new team every year. I mean, because you don't have guys from year to year. So
Correct.
that's tough.
Yeah, we'll probably have theoretically maybe 4 kids from last year's group, and we started last year with 16 kids.
Wow. And it's single A. So I mean it's the smallest classification in Georgia, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's so basically what they're trying to do is get private schools out of GHSA and shift them into GISA. So our private schools will go to GISA because they're tired of private schools roster picking the publics, which is crazy because most of the roster picking is from public to public. So it doesn't matter to me. I figured if a young man, if you're doing your job as a head coach and doing what you're supposed to do with your environment and your culture, kids won't desire to leave. So if a kid is really that big on transferring out, even if when I was a college coach, I never took it personal. If you feel like this place is so unbearable, you need to go somewhere else, then I fully understand. Let me know how I can help. Now, most coaches are petty and they don't look at it like that. So to me, it's no big deal. We have kids come here from all over. A lot of them, I have no idea that they're coming. Oh, coach, you're stealing kids. First off, I had no idea the kid was coming. I just met the young man's mom. Didn't even know he played sports until after the fact. So, it blows my mind that people say that. And then you look around this area, you got 17, 20 kids transferring into schools. I'm like, well, wait a minute, 20 kids. Whew. If we get 1 or 2, I'm excited. 20, holy smokes.
Yeah. So, Coach, you've coached college football a lot of different places. A lot of young coaches are always asking, how do I move up? How do I get my resume at the top of the stack? I don't like what advice would you give to those coaches out there that, want to move up or want to get a better job or like that, Coach? What do you think?
So I've heard it from many different coaches. And one that kind of stood out was Hugh Jackson, legendary guy out of California. He was a head coach in the NFL, is now at Grambling State. One thing he had mentioned that made sense to me was be great where your feet are. I don't think enough people have enough humility to understand. Like, I could understand how being ambitious and wanting to coach at the highest level. I mean, by all means, you should have ambition to do so. Be great where your feet are and let people know that you desire to move up. If you're a high school coach wanting to coach in college, reach out and network, show up to people's campuses, shake hands with decision makers, meet DFOs, meet athletic directors, go to different satellite camps, shake hands with people. If they allow coaches to work drills with Division I guys, do it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a reference, regardless of what a lot of people don't look at resumes. They just get a reference. Hey, we need a GA. You got anybody? Yeah. Hey, I need an analyst. Give me a name. Got it. Or they'll reach out to, like Coach's Choice or some other different agencies that place. Very rarely do people look at resumes anymore. And if they do, some people's resumes are too lengthy. You don't need to have a lengthy resume. Consolidate it down into one. People's attention spans are small, including kids. They don't want to look at a 10-page book about who you are and what you've done. Just kind of get down to the finite bullet points. But that's what I would recommend. People can't be afraid to bother. And I say this because when all of us got married, you bothered the heck out of a woman to convince them to marry you, right? So you should have the same approach is when you want to desire to coach at the next level. Bother coaches. College coaches bothered someone else to get a job. They bothered people to get recruits in their door. They bothered people to get guys in the NFL. They bother people. So in turn, don't feel like you're bothering people. Get on the phone. Hey, you got 5 minutes to talk ball? Hey, could I come down in person and I want to run this idea by you? Because I call, for instance, Kerry Colbert, who's now the receiver coach for the Broncos. He was a Hall of Famer at USC. Was there in the Pete Carroll era. Was a 4-year starter, coach at Bama, coach at Florida, coach at USC, coach at Georgia State. I mean, he's an absolute legend. And every once in a while, we'll get on the phone and just talk receiver stuff, releases, how to stem, press, hard zones, soft zones, how to break off a route. What are your aiming points? What are your steps? Just to kind of pick each other's brain because I'm always trying to find a way to get better. I want to be able to teach my guys better. I want to understand football better. So you can't be afraid to have those conversations with people. And then when coaches ask for something, have your stuff ready. You know, if a college coach needs information on a kid, they're going to get it from a college pair of eyes because I know how to evaluate at that level. Hey, coach, you know any quarterbacks in the area? Yes. Do you know any transfer quarterbacks? Yes. Do you know any transfer D linemen? Absolutely. How big do you want it? Do you know any young high school linebackers? Yes. I have an answer. Yes, it's always going to be my answer. And if I can't find it right now, I'll find one for a coach. So, and always be ready. Have your phone on hand. And anytime you can speak, to talk football, to get on Zooms, to get on the board with people, do it. And again, be intentional about what you want to do. If you want to coach at that level, be intentional. Let people know. Don't just assume that because you saw a job on Football Scoop and you applied, you're the only person that applied. I guarantee you there's going to be about 300 applicants that are putting in the same job as you. So to them, they're looking at it just like a piece of paper. Unless they know you, probably not going to get the job.
They got to know you. You got to put a name to a face to a name. Who are some of the coaches that you study or read books on or listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos of, Coach? Who are some of your mentors, guys that you study? Maybe you don't know them per se, but you just like their philosophies or how they do things.
So I had the chance to work with Pete Carroll at SC for his camp. And I never met anybody with more energy in the world. And I was at East LA College at the time, and I was working with the 9th grade group on the separate field just before they revamped everything. And they gave us a little book, and it was like 4th down and 2. And I hear someone just screaming with their hair on fire. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And everyone's like, oh. So he's running through a crowd. And he hit me so hard on my back. Like, I was like, what the heck? He's all, and he has his hands on his knees. He's staring at me, sweating. Hey, what the hell are you going to call? I'm like, what? What play are you going to call? It's 4th and 2. What are we going to do? I said, I'm running this player here. Then run it then. You better get the first down. And he stood there with that 9th grade group, and we're running a 7-on-7. And obviously we got the first down. He grabs me and starts shaking me. Good job. Boom, gone. And his energy was so infectious. Ed Odron was on the staff. He's another one that has just endless energy. Man, he hit me so hard in the back of my neck. And to me, I always wanted to be the first one there. Came 30 minutes early. He hit me so hard in the back of the neck. And the dude just hammering Red Bulls, like huge cans of Red Bulls, biggest I've ever seen. Hey, what's going on? Is that Odron? Hey, and he read my shirt. He's like, oh, we got a bunch of guys from that area, man. How you doing, Coach? And every single person on that staff was high energy, high octane, confrontational. Their practices, the camps, high octane, yelling and screaming, super confrontational, super competitive. And I just loved it. And Pete Carroll was a guy that I just fell in love with. Nick Saban, got to be on a couple Zooms with him, got to ask him some questions. Reading his book now, got to see him at a few speaking engagements. Never had a PowerPoint. Had a cup of coffee, watched him talk for an hour straight. And if you asked him a question, he'd obliterate you in a room full of coaches. You could hear, a pin drop. That's how intimidated people were to ask him questions, because someone asked him a question, and it's basically like you insulted him by asking a question, right? Crushed him. Next person. Yes. I got a question, Coach. Crushed him. Anybody else? Nothing. So, he's another guy that I'm reading up on just to seeing how just their methodology, philosophically, what are they doing? How are they having success? Obviously, they have great players, but they're doing something that's unique. Players love playing for him. Players love being around him. He doesn't forget anybody. Another guy I like Ryan Silverfield, the head coach at Memphis. We have a really good relationship. High energy guy, very approachable guy. Philosophically, we're very much the same. I drove down there to go see him in person. We still talk about once a week now. Other one I want to meet is PJ Fleck. So I'm trying to get in touch with their people to fly down there and go meet him in person. I just love his energy and passion. Got to see him speak at the AFCA. I loved everything about it. And obviously they have a great year this year. I could care less about the record. I'm more concerned with how his energy and how he pours into his kids and how can I improve in that area. So I'm going to fly down to meet him. Matt Rule was another sharp guy that I got to get a chance to get in touch with at Nebraska. I like philosophically what he does. Going to go down and see him. So, but the one that kind of always stood out, and I read the book a bunch of times, is Pete Carroll. Man, he just I love everything about him. Love what he does. Loves what he's done at USC. I'm a big USC fan, and anytime you could do what he did in our state, it's going to leave a lasting impression on me. I can never be a Pete Carroll by any means, but there's certain things that he does that I try to mirror with my kids.
Have you got Pete Carroll's DVD, Win Forever?
No, I read the book. I have the book. I have not had a chance
to
see the DVD. No, I do not.
Coach, I want you to text me your address because I believe I got the DVD.
No, I'll definitely check it out, man.
Because I love Pete Carroll too. And the thing that he says in that DVD is the one thing he's realized about himself is that he is a competitor. And what does that mean to you, Coach, when he's a competitor, that you're a competitor?
I think it's one of those things is you don't ever handle complacency. You don't allow mediocre. You don't allow excuses. You don't allow whining and complaining. You just find ways to get it done, regardless of the hard, regardless of the challenges within that. Take sport out of it. Just how do you handle things that come your way? If it's getting to work, be the first one there, be the last one there. Small task. If you see a trash can full, grab it. You see a water cooler needs to get filled up, fill it up. You see a piece of trash on there, again, grab it. Be the first one to grab it. Everything you do should be competitive. Now, I shouldn't say everything you do. You got to be kind of realistic about it. You don't want to be competing for bed space at home with your wife and then she kick you out, stuff like that. But just in as far as how you approach everything that you're doing as far as professionally, you could compete at a high level. And I think people get caught up, well, if I'm not the best athlete anymore, then what? Then be the best coach. I can't do this. Well, be great at being a leader. Be great at being a greeter at Walmart. I said, if I was a greeter at Walmart, I'd be jacked like I was on Mountain Dew all the time, high-fiving people. Oh, man, you got some good stuff. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. You don't have to let that job define you. You are your own person. But I think it's if you have infectious energy, your heart's in the right place, you're respectful, firm handshake, you're smiling, and you give out positive vibes. It just goes a long way, man. People enjoy that. People want to gravitate towards positive energy, man. Don't be a negative Nancy.
Yeah, I love Pete Carroll, man. I like what he says in the video. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but you're from California, so you might understand it. He says, we don't want to be the best ones doing it. We want to be the only ones doing it. And he makes a reference to the Grateful Dead. He said the Grateful Dead weren't the best doing it. They were the only ones doing it. They were the only ones that were traveling around the world with the Deadheads, that Jerry Garcia. Like, they were the only ones doing it. I mean, what does that mean to you, Coach? That not the best doing it, but the only ones doing it.
Man, that's that is a tall feat.
Yeah, you want to be the Grateful Dead.
I think it's, again, it goes back to something I said earlier, just putting yourself around the right people. PJ Flex says to get the right people on the boat or right people on the bus going in the right direction. I think at a place like USC, they wanted to be great and they allowed him resources to get the coaches he needs, to get the players that he needed to be able to do what he wanted to get done. And I think for him having the success that he had, and including in the NFL, you got to have the right supports in place. For whatever reason, people feel they could do it on their own and they don't need, administrative support. There's no way you're going to have success, especially at the college level or higher, even high school, without the necessary supports in place. If you have the desire and vision to be great and the mission to be great, and your administration isn't in line with that and they're not going to support it, it's just not going to happen. But when you do, that's when you start getting into that Grateful Dead category, like you just said, and just being exceptional. And no one could touch exceptional. And people can't be afraid to push boundaries. They can't be afraid to be uncomfortable. They got to be able to rise through all that with the attitude of excellence. And when you do that, you can put yourself into a category just like that. And it may not be at SC, it may not be for the Seahawks, it may not be in Alabama. It might be right where you're at. and you might be able to create a niche that people are going to want to emulate and mirror. So instead of us talking about Pete Carroll and Nick Saban and everyone else, we could be talking about that person.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Grateful Dead because I look back here and I saw the Mushroom Society, the Cool Clinic. Surround yourself with people that you want to be like. It's the cheat code to life. That's Mr. Beast. I think that's his name. Is it Mr. Beast, the guy on YouTube? He's from North Carolina.
I'm not certain. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, the guy's got like a billion followers. He's like 25 years old. He said the cheat code to life is to surround yourself with people you want to be like. He wanted to be a bodybuilder. So he got bodybuilders to come around him because they eat healthy. They work out all the time. Mark Marrow, the famous, Johnny Be Good wrestler, he said, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So, I mean, Coach, you live by the same motto. I mean, your friend, Coach Shark, he recommended you to be on this podcast. You surround yourself with people who are great coaches, and that's why you are in the same category as them. So do you agree with this, Coach? I mean, like if there's a young coach out there and he's hanging out with the guys that's, smoking weed or hustling or doing stupid stuff, that guy's not going to end up being a great coach, is he? He needs to hang around people that he wants to be like. So could you give somebody advice on that, Coach? Like if they want to succeed, surround themselves with people they want to be like. What do you think about that?
I think it's when you got to be able to bet on yourself. I think a lot of times people fail to do that because they're insecure or they let the outside world define who you are and your limitations. And in actuality, we define our own limitations. And sometimes we could be our biggest advocate. And in a lot of cases now, more than ever, we could be our biggest naysayer. And I don't know why people put limitations on themselves, because maybe it's from, the culture and environment that they're in, or their family dynamics, or they feel their particular circumstances put limitations on you. It doesn't, man. It really doesn't. I think for young coaches is put yourself in the situation to be successful. Like you just said, surround yourself around the right type of people that create value in you and help direct you into a situation where you can be successful. Don't get caught up in convenience. Get caught up in inconvenience, meaning that if I have to not smoke weed and drink beer in the corner and not go party and give up some time to master my craft because you have a vision and goal in mind, and if your friends understand that and they appreciate it, they're pushing you towards that, not pushing you away from it.
Yeah, amen, Coach. I mean, just being around you has motivated me, Coach. So like, what are you looking towards this summer and towards, the rest of this year? What are you working towards? I know you have the Twitter space, but what else do you have going on, Coach? I see that you're a doctorate student, or you're getting your doctorate, or you have it.
Yes, sir. I'm technically supposed to graduate next Saturday. I still have two classes and a dissertation defense. But like I told you earlier, always be the example to set. So I was a person that wasn't supposed to finish high school. I wasn't supposed to graduate college. Matter of fact, my grandmother called me the day before graduation and said, "Man, I guess I owe you money. I didn't think you're going to make it." And I said, "I don't know if that was supposed to be a motivating phone call or not." But to me, in order to really pour into young men, you have to give them a visual example. If you're working out, I'm too old to work out. I feel my body's sore all the time, but I'm going to do it. I don't like running, but if the kids see you do it, they're not going to freak out when you ask them to do it. I'm saying maintain a GPA. Right now I'm at a 3.7. It's not too much to ask a young man to have a 3.0, right? So is it hard? Sure. But guess what? Life is hard. So in order for you to make demands from anybody else, whether it's student athletes or people you work with or anybody, then model the behavior you expect from others. If you want to be telling people to be more positive, then you be more positive. You be the example. Because nowadays it's, in order to be positive, it takes discipline. In order to be great, it takes discipline. In order to do anything well, it takes time management. You have to give some things up to be great. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They want to live in that space of convenience. They want to stare at their phone 24/7 and have a sore neck. They want to be able to be liked on Instagram. They want to get their followers on Snapchat or whatever that crap is. It's hard to keep up, man. That's just the world we live in. But that's not, to me, that's not success. That's not being great. Being great takes work. Being great isn't easy. I've never had anything handed to me. I never had a silver spoon growing up. I had to just grind, man. My first college championship that I won, I was living in my car. And I had 3 different jobs, and I didn't make excuses. I showed up every day with an attitude of excellence, and I never gave up. I never gave up on those kids, and I knew this is what I want to do for a passion. And I didn't let my circumstances define what I wanted to get done. I wanted to be a selfless servant to others. I wanted to pour into people. I wanted to do things the right way. And if I had to sacrifice a little bit to do that, then that's what it takes. And if you really want to be great at anything, whether it's coaching, teaching, or anything, then you have to be able to make the ultimate sacrifice. And if you're not able to do that, then be fine being, slicing meat at the meat market, or being a greeter at Walmart, or just digging ditches, or just doing construction, and just live in that space where you're just complaining about everybody else. And I never got my break and X, Y, and Z. You can live in that space, but you're not going to have a happy life.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Air that they made about the Jordans?
I watched it last week, man. It was phenomenal.
Oh. I mean, I have become obsessed with Sonny Vaccaro. So, like, I've been trying to get a hold of somebody that knows Sonny Vaccaro. So, I found George Raveling, Coach Rav, and he is the guy in the movie. It's the Marlon Wayans character, the guy that he meets at the Italian restaurant, Tony Romo's or whatever it's called. And he talks to him, and George Rav, I found out about this guy, but this guy is amazing, Coach. Everything that you're talking about, self-talk, reading, writing books, just being the best. Like, he was the head coach at SC for basketball. Do you know who I'm talking about, Coach? Yeah.
I watched the movie, and I was just hooked the entire time. They did a great job with the actors they placed in there, but the whole storyline and how everything went about, I was just blown away. I was on the edge of my seat saying, man, he's going to go with Converse, or I think it was Adidas. I was like, he's not going to go with Nike. I mean, do we all know he's going to go to Nike? But the way they built it up is like, I don't know if they're going to get that call, man. And Viola Davis, man, she is one of them. She's my favorite actress of all time, man. She is just phenomenal. Good. She rocked it.
Coach, look up this guy, Coach Rav. He's on Twitter. I've listened to 2 podcasts with him. The guy, he really does own the I Have a Dream speech. Like, they didn't give the character justice of who this guy really is. He was the basketball coach at USC. He was the first black Pac-8, I think it was then, before it was Pac-12, head coach in basketball. But, man, I started following this guy and listening to him, and he's so motivational, Coach. Before we got on air, you told me about some work that you're doing with the Minority Coaches Association, Coach. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm part of the National Coalition of Minority Coaches Association. The president is Mike Loxley, who's the head coach at Maryland. And yeah, they got some heavy hitters on the panel, from Mike Tomlin to Nick Saban to a whole slew of people. So I'm an advisor for them, do some work, some behind the scenes work. And that thing has really taken off. I'm a guest speaker. I'm one of the high school panelists. Myself, one other guy that was featured on the AFCA is my right-hand guy, Rodney Salisbury, the head coach at Whitehaven out of Tennessee. He was on the cover of their AFCA. I don't know if if you read the AFCA magazine. It goes out to pretty much all the coaches in the country. He was featured on there. So he runs the Minority Coach Association in Tennessee, and Mr. Cleveland does some podcasts off of that. And I've done some stuff for them, or she's been following the Twitter spaces and then asked me if I'd be willing to come on and kind of share my journey like I'm doing with you, and give advice to parents about, the recruiting process and what to do, what to look for, how to better relate to kids. What should coaches be doing? What should parents be doing? Because it's a whole entire team. It's a whole entire process, with recruiting. And so on top of those Twitter spaces on Wednesdays, People invite me kind of periodically to do different tasks, and very rarely do I say no if it's going to better someone else's day or better someone else's lifestyle.
Amen, coach. I mean, yes. I mean, dude, I just hit you up yesterday. Yes. I mean, it was like, let me get back with you. Yes, you right on it, coach. Like I'm just so glad I've gotten to meet you and learn more about you. Coach, what have we not talked about that you would like people to know, or the message that you want to get out there, maybe to the high school coaches that are watching?
I want to circle back to what I said earlier about Chris Thomas, and hopefully when we get done here, I'll send you his information. He's a very busy guy. He runs Odyssey Sports. He told me a long time ago, and I'm going to repeat it again, is no matter what you do in life, don't ever stop giving. And to me, that's always resonated with me. And there's certain things that coaches have done and people in my life that have done that. My dad was one where when people needed a place to live, and we were like 8 deep in a 2-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of town. He didn't turn people away. People need to take a shower, eat, or whatever. My dad would give the shirt off his back if he could. Those two people, to me, is people I'd want to be like. My dad always gives. He's always given. Still to this day, his youth baseball coaches, our players, will come and bring their kids to learn how to throw a curveball or fastball. He doesn't turn them away. If they knock on the door, they come in. He'll invite them in with open arms. And it blows my mind. And Coach Thomas, if I ever call him, he'll call me back. Always has nothing but great energy. And again, his TED Talks is phenomenal. Hopefully you get a chance to take a look at that.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it, man. I've never even met someone that's had a TED Talk. I can't spell TED.
He is a phenomenal man, and he does phenomenal work. And again, I always tap in with him. He always wants to know how I'm doing and things like that. I'm trying to get him over to our school to speak at some point when time permits. But just I would say, if anything else, that I think people get so self-absorbed, and we live in a world of entitlement now more than ever, especially with student athletes. Don't forget to stop, smell the roses, and give, man. Just even if it's a homeless guy, you see him on the street, give him some change. Hear him speak, give him a cup of coffee, throw him an apple his way. And as much as you're filling their cup, you're going to get it right back in return.
Amen, Coach. So I appreciate you coming on, Coach. I'm going to press end here, and then we'll stay on and talk for a little bit, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.